This happened when I was 15. My mom and dad divorced when I was 9. Soon after, my mom married my stepfather. Summers and every other Christmas were spent out of state with my dad. The rest of the time, I was with my mom. They did not have the nicest of splits in divorce, but both insisted and kept to it that they would not interfere with my younger brother and I, relationship with the other parent. My stepfather did not agree to this, however, and did everything he could to sabotage our relationship with our father. My dad would call, and if my stepfather answered the phone, he would hang up on Dad. He called my dad to demand more child support, or he would legally adopt us and my dad would never see us again. I had no real friends growing up because I did not want to bring people home. One day, while visiting my dad, we ordered some custom leather jackets to arrive about a month later. It came, and I found the box on the dining room table with return to sender written on it as if he had meant to send it back later. I grabbed it, stashed it in my room, and thankfully he forgot all about it. That night after dinner, as everyone was on the couch watching the evening news, I brought the package out, gave it to Mom, and asked her to explain why it was being sent back. My stepdad began to say that we couldn't afford it, to which I said everything had already been paid for, and why did he hang up on Dad when Dad called? And I said Dad had recordings of the threats to adopt us and prevent Dad from ever seeing us again. My stepfather began spinning a tale about how he just wanted us all to be one big family, and he knew how my mom didn't like my dad, and he did everything for the sake of the family. Then he caught me smiling, stopped, and asked me, "What is so funny?" I said, "Dad has no recordings, but why does he need them when you just admitted to everything?" He said something unintelligible and jumped off the couch to lunge at me until my mom stopped him by getting in between us. Mom simply said, "Out," and he walked to the front door and let himself out. After we heard him drive away, Mom asked for the details about everything and apologized for bringing him into our lives. The next morning, I was walking to the bus for school when my stepfather quickly pulled up near me and stopped, then got out of the car and started walking towards me. I screamed like I've never screamed before or since. He got up to me, slapped me across the face, grabbed my shirt, and started walking me to his car. I didn't go peacefully, though, screaming and resisting the whole way. That's when my savior appeared. An older gentleman had seen everything and came out of his house with quite possibly the largest hand cannon I have ever seen outside of the movies. He just saw an older man dragging a screaming teen girl to his car. He told my stepdad to stop, pointed his gun at him, and got him to kneel down with his ankles crossed and to intertwine his fingers behind his head. So I believe he was former military. Isn't that how you are taught to take prisoners? I don't know for sure. His wife had also seen everything and called the police, then came out and began soothing me. When the police arrived, 2 cars, 4 officers in total, my savior put his gun down and raised his hands to show the police he meant no harm to them, that he was not a threat. His wife said that she was the one who called and said that she and her husband had seen a man pull up, grab a young girl, and began dragging her to his car when they decided to interfere for my safety. I then confirmed the story, but did not mention he was my stepfather. The police asked for IDs and noted that my student ID, all I had at the time, had a different last name and had no sign of the name my stepfather was calling me. At the time, I went by my middle name, but my student ID had my actual first name, and I had kept my original last name, so it was different from his, despite his attempt to claim he was my father and was just disciplining me for something. He was handcuffed and taken away in one of the cars while the other car drove me to school. I had missed the bus by this time, where the officer went in and told the attendance office lady that I had been the victim of an attempted kidnapping, and that's why I was late. He later showed up after school to give me a ride home and stayed in the house with me until my mom got off work and came home. My brother, who was unaware of my day's adventures, came home, and me, my brother, and the officer played video games until my mom got home. My mom and stepfather later divorced. When I was at school a couple of days later, my stepfather came by the house with a police escort and my mom's supervision and got his personal stuff. My mom was later able to get a restraining order against him for herself, me, and my brother. Haven't heard from my former stepfather since. My brother still lives with his family in our hometown and saw that my savior had just passed away and decided to tell me, and he told me to put my story here. I've been on Reddit for a while reading everyone's crazy encounters, but I never actually made an account as I never expected I would encounter a Karen myself, but surprisingly I did in fact encounter one, so I made an account to post this crazy story. On to the story. For some context, I am a 20-year-old female and work as a cashier at a nearby grocery store. My neighbor, the entitled mother, and her son are people I don't see much. However, I see the son more than the entitled mother as we became friends when I moved in. The son was 17 and in a few days it would be his birthday, and I had got him the book he had been wanting for a while and other stuff along with some snacks. You know, the usual stuff. It was a cold afternoon, and I got some hot chocolate while watching TV when I hear loud banging and shrieking coming from my door. When I open it, the following conversation ensues. Entitled, "Mother, hi, you finally opened the door." Me. "Sorry, I had a hot chocolate, and I had to put it down. What can I help you with?" "I came to get the presents. I haven't wrapped them yet. Sorry, if you give me a minute, I can wrap them." I couldn't even finish that phrase till this shriveled voice said, "You don't have to wrap keys to my son's new house." "What?" I'm confused. She groans and tries to step inside, but I keep in the way of the door, kinda scared because a grown woman who doesn't seem like she would hesitate to beat me up was trying to step inside. Entitled, "Mother, are you deaf? Get the keys to my son's house." "I think you have it wrong. I don't have keys to any other house than this one." "I know, because you're poor. I mean, get the keys to this house you agreed to give him." Then she gets her phone and shows an obviously edited screenshot of me saying yes, and at that point, I was fed up and just slammed the door in her face, and I was happy with myself when I walked inside, hearing loud screaming and banging outside, but after a few minutes it was quiet again. Now, I'm a night owl and I read a lot, losing track of time, so I checked the time on my phone after reading a few chapters of a book I was reading, and it was around midnight, so I decided I would call it a night when I hear something odd outside. Now, in my house, my bedroom is on the front side of my house on the right side, so I can see pretty much my whole front yard. So when I looked out, I was mortified to see a figure at my door, and it looked like they were trying to wedge my door open, and I was scared. I had never been in a situation where I needed to call the police, but I wasn't sure if I should. But when I saw they were nearly succeeding in opening my front door, I decided it was kinda needed to call the police, so I grabbed my phone and I called the cops. They arrived after a few minutes, and when I went downstairs after they got the person, I was incredibly shocked to see the entitled mother screaming and kicking about how her son deserved the house. Or how it was in fact his house and I had stole it, which I had to stop myself from laughing after hearing, and she was put into the cop car. The son celebrated his birthday with me since the entitled mother had not returned, and he cracked up hearing what happened, and he was so happy with the original gifts I bought him, and a little update is that the entitled mother has in fact returned, but I'm surprised to say she hasn't bothered me. And the son says she has been quiet, so hopefully she learned her lesson. So I'm a 21-year-old female. My parents are both white. They have kids and me as number 6. They adopted my little brother and I when we were babies. My brother and I are mixed but what some call light-skin black. Anyway, this story happened when I was in elementary school. Some backstory to help you understand my family. Being black and having white family, plus growing up in a white area was challenging. Like my brother and I had swim passes, so sometimes my mom would drop us off at the pool, and my dad would pick us up and frequently would be stopped and asked for proof he was our dad. It also didn't help that my mom was 48 when I was adopted, having her last kid at 40. With that, my oldest brother is 20 years older than me, so I have a nephew who is only a year younger than me and a month younger than my little brother. We get weird looks when we are out in public with my brother and I calling my mom, and my nephew calling her grandma. so a lot of times people thought my older siblings thought my sisters were my mom. Okay, now you're all caught up. In elementary school, my mom worked as a Title I teacher, which basically means she goes to class to help kids read. She still does this and did the whole time my brother and I were in school. Most of my friends knew I was adopted. Figured they probably just asked their parents why I looked different. Well, one day when I was about in 4th grade, my mom came to class. It was the first time for the school year, so people didn't know she was my mom. I had a bad headache, so when she came in, I was relieved and shouted excitedly, "Mommy, can I have some medicine?" Some kids looked confused, but before I could, for example, the entitled kid stated, "Sometimes when a white woman and black man make a baby, it comes out black." I was shocked, and as a little kid, I didn't know how to respond, so I didn't. I went over to my mom, and she gave me medicine she had in her bag. Cue the entitled kid. "I need some medicine, too." My mother explained to her that she couldn't give her medicine because it was against school policy, and she could give me medicine because she was my mom. She rolled her eyes and huffed back to her desk. We thought that was the end of it, till the next morning. Each morning, all the Title I aides would meet up in the library to organize their stuff and chit-chat. I would come and sit with them a lot because I would get back earaches from being outside. That's when the entitled mother comes in. You must be the N-word lover. All the aide teachers' mouths dropped. I didn't know what that word meant at the time, but I could tell it was bad because of everyone's face. My mother told her not to use that language in front of me. The entitled mother rolled her eyes and began to demand to know why she wouldn't give her daughter some medicine if she was giving me some. My mother explained again. Then the entitled mother said, "So because you chose a N-word and made a child, they get medical help over my baby." I could see my mother getting upset. Again, if you continue to use that language, I'll have to get the principal involved. The entitled mother smiled. "Fine, let's do it." My mother and the entitled mother left, and I did not understand what's going on, so I called my dad and told him what happened. Now, my mom is the nice, soft-spoken type. My dad, on the other hand, had an intense resting brat face, and when angry is angry, so my dad told me he was on his way. I waited in the front office for my parents. My dad got to the school before my mom came out and knocked on the door. Principal opened the door and the lady saw my dad. When seeing my dad, my mom said, "What are you doing here, hon?" The entitled mother's face looked like she had seen a ghost. "So is her daddy the milkman?" Again, I didn't know what that meant, but I could tell by my dad's face he was not happy. The entitled mother said, "How else would she look like that?" gesturing at me, then turning to the principal. "I mean, she obviously isn't a good example for the children, so you should fire her for the children's sake." My dad started laughing, which I knew wasn't a good sign when he was mad. He told me to go find my brother and get my stuff, then they closed the door. The bell had rang already, so the front desk lady gave me a note, and I went to my brother's class and got him. We both agreed to be on our best behavior since Dad was mad. We sat on the bench waiting, then my parents came out. "Are you fired, Mom?" I asked. Then my mom smiled. "Of course not, but we are going home for today to talk." Sweet. Ditch day. My parents took us to Denny's for breakfast since we missed it because our school provided it. They explained to us that some people don't like the color of our skin and that it was never okay for us to be called that. We got to stay home. The next day I noticed the entitled kid was moved to another class and found out the entitled mother was kicked out of the Parents-Teacher Association. Edit. I married a white man. He served an LDS mission to New Zealand and the Cook Islands. Surprisingly, we were asked a lot if he brought me back from his mission. People are always asking me where I'm from. Well, we have a son, and he looks just like his dad but has my curls. So I get funny looks a lot, and people are always surprised I'm his mom. I've never had that intense racism till I was older, but I had the small things here and there. I've been told I talk and act like a white woman, not sure what that means, but when I say I was adopted and show a family picture, it seems to help make sense to people.